Students, let us continue the lesson. No sign, oh nothing, said the cop who had first spoken to mother. The lady seems hysterical. They all nodded, but said nothing, just looked at me. In the small silence, we all heard a creaking in the attic. Grandfather was turning over in bed. What is that? Snapped Joe. 5 or 6 cops sprang for the attic door before I could intervene or explain. I realized that it would be bad if they burst in on grandfather unannounced or even announced. He was going through a phase in which he believed that the General Meade's men, under steady hammering by Stonewall Jackson, were beginning to retreat and even desert. Students, what do we understand in the passage? The policeman who talked to the narrator's mother said to her, "No burglar is here. You need not be afraid of anyone." When they were talking all these things, they heard a creaking in the attic where grandfather was sleeping. Then at once the policeman went to the attic to know if anyone was there. The narrator was afraid or worried because if grandfather sees the policeman, he will misunderstand them of General Meade's men. Because grandfather had a negative opinion about Meade's men. Grandfather had thought that Meade's men are not genuine people. Grandfather General மீடேஸோட பீப்புளை பற்றி அவர் ரொம்ப தப்பாக நினச்சிருந்தார். அவருடைய ஆட்கள் எல்லாருமே ஜென்யூனாக இருக்க மாட்டாங்க. மிலிட்ரியில் ஒர்க் பண்ணுறதுக்கு உயிருக்கு பயந்துட்டு மிலிட்ரியை விட்டு ஓடி வந்திருக்கிறாங்க, தப்பிச்சு ஓடி வந்திருக்கிறாங்க, அவங்கெல்லாம் கோழைங்க அப்படின்னு அவர் ஒரு ஒப்பீனியன் வச்சுருந்தார். ஸோ அதனால் அப்படி ஒரு நெகட்டிவ் ஒப்பீனியன் இருந்ததுனால போலீஸ்மேன் அங்கே போய் சர்ச் பண்ண போனால் அங்கே ஏதாவது பிரச்சனை நடந்துடும் அப்படின்னு நேரேட்டர் ரொம்ப பயந்தார். Let us see the new words in the passage and their meanings. Hysterical. Hysteric means overwrought or out of control. Nod. Nod means தலையை அசைக்கிறது. If you nod your head, you move your head up and down to show that you agree on something. Creaking. Creaking means making a squawking sound when being moved. ஏதாவது இழுக்கிறப்ப creak அப்படின்னு சத்தம் கேட்குதா இல்லையா, அதான் creaking. Snap. Snap means to speak or say something in an impatient noise or angrily. Saying something angrily. Retreat, that means fall back. Retreat means fall back. Let us see the next passages. When I got to the attic, things were pretty confused. Grandfather had evidently jumped to the conclusion that the police were deserters from Meade's army, trying to hide away in his attic. He bounded out of bed, wearing a long flannel nightgown over long woolen pants, a nightcap, and a leather jacket around his chest. The cops must have realized at once that the indignant white-haired old man belonged to the house, but they had no chance to say so. "Back, ye cowardly dog!" roared grandfather. "Back it! The lines, ye godam lily-livered cattle!" With that, he fetched the officer who found the zitar a flat-handed smack alongside his head that sent him sprawling. The others beat a retreat, but not enough. Grandfather grabbed Zidar's gun from its holster and let fly. The report seemed to crack the rafters. Smoke filled the attic. A cop hissed and shot his hand to his shoulders. Somehow we all finally got downstairs again and locked the door against the old gentleman. He fired once or twice more in the darkness and then went back to bed. That was grandfather, I explained to Joe out of breath. He thinks you are a deserter. I will say he does, said Joe. Students, what do we understand in the passage? As the narrator thought the situation went very dangerous, Grandpa misunderstood the policemen as General Meade's men who had escaped from army and had come to hide themselves in his attic. As I told you earlier, Grandpa had a negative opinion about General Meade's men. What we will do if we happen to meet some dangerous men? Grandpa also did the same. Grandpa, becoming very much angry and putting on his night dress, he scolded the policemen as dogs. அவங்கள டாக்ஸ்ன்னு திட்டுறாரு தாத்தா. Grandpa said they are cowards. Telling all these things, he attacked one policeman on his head. He was not satisfied with the attack, so he took gun from the policeman's holster and shot him. As he shot up in the air, it cracked the rafters and full of smoke in the attic. அவர் அதோடு அடித்ததோட திருப்தி ஆகலை. அந்த போலீஸ்மேன்ட்டு இருந்து ஒரு கன் எடுத்து மேலே சுட்டார். அப்போது அந்த மேலே இருக்கிற மேற்கூரை சட்டெல்லாம் உடஞ்சி விழுது. அதனால் full of smoke in the attic. The policeman then locked the old man inside the room. Thus the situation went to very worst. Students, let us see the new words in the passage and the meanings. Indignant. Indignant means feeling or showing anger. Feeling or showing anger. Grab. Grab means to hold something. To hold something. Deserter. Deserter means a person who leaves the armed force without permission. He is called a deserter. Let us see the next passages. The cops were reluctant to leave without getting their hand on somebody besides grandfather. The night had been distinctly a defeat for them. Furthermore, they obviously didn't like the layout. Something looked, and I can see their viewpoint pony. They began to poke into things again. A reporter, a thin-faced, wispy man, came up to me. I had put on one of my mother's dress, not being able to find anything else. The reporter looked at me with mingled suspicion and interest. Just what the hell is a real lowdown here, bud? He asked. I decided to be frank with him. We had goes, I said. He gazed at me a long time as if I were a slot machine into which he had, without results, dropped a coin. Then he walked away. The cops followed him. The one grandfather shot, holding his now bandaged arm, cursing and blaspheming. I'm gonna get my gun back from that old bird, said the Zidar cop. Yeah, said Joe. You and who else? I told them I would bring it to the station house the next day. Yes, students, what do we understand in the passage? The policeman could not find any burglar in the house, so it was a great failure for the police team. So they again began to search for things, and one thin-faced police came to the narrator and asked him what was going on there. The narrator replied that the narrator and his brother saw the ghost in the house. The policeman who was shot by the grandfather scolded the grandpa severely and also thought of getting the gun back from the old man. Then the narrator said to the policeman, I will hand over the gun to the police station tomorrow. Let us see the new words in the passage and their meanings. Reluctant. Reluctant means hesitating. Reluctant means hesitating before doing something. Distinctly. Distinctly means clearly. Obviously. Obviously also clearly. Poke means to quickly put your fingers into something. To quickly put your fingers into something. Poke means. Wispy means not thick. Not thick. Suspicion means doubt. Suspicion means doubt. Frank means honest. Frank means honest. Blaspheme. Blaspheme means to speak in a way that insults others. To speak in a way that insults others. Let us see the last two passages. What was the matter with that one policeman? Mother asked. After they had gone, grandfather shot him. I said, what for? She demanded. I told her he was a deserted. Of all things, said mother, he was such a nice looking young man. Grandfather was fresh as a daisy and full of jokes at breakfast next morning. We thought at first he had forgotten all about what had happened, but he hadn't. Over his third cup of coffee, he glared at Herman and me. What was the idea of all them cops tarry-hooting round the house last night? He demanded. None of you bothered to leave a bottle of water beside my bed. Do you ever realize what it cost for a thirsty man to look for water in the dining room last night? He had us there. Students, what do we understand in the passages? The narrator's mother asked him, what is the problem to the policeman? The narrator said, Grandpa shot him with a gun. Next day, everyone sat for a breakfast. The narrator thought that his grandfather would have forgotten what had happened the previous day night. But the grandfather, without forgetting anything, asked us what happened to the policeman who came here last night. Grandpa, when drank the third cup of coffee, he asked us, looking at Herman and the narrator angrily, why they had not put a water bottle near his bed. Then only the entire family understood that the ghost did not enter their house. It was all Grandpa who was wandering here and there for water that night. Thus, misunderstanding of Grandpa as ghost made a big confusion and funny things as well. With the students, the lesson comes to an end. Thank you.